If you've seen the first film, then there isn't really a whole lot here that you haven't already seen before. It's very similar content to the first movie and kind of repackaged with a more feminist or female-centric package rather than the male-centric sort of themes and ideas of the first movie. In fact, in some ways, this is slightly feminist and slightly, promotes the idea of independence in women and independence in females. And it addresses the rather peculiar habit that, some outlets take where they look at female empowerment as being, putting down men the way that men put down women, or degrading men in the way that men can degrade women. So it talks about that and sort of says, well, emulating men's bad behaviour isn't really a form of strength and independence for females. So it does address that, which, is a positive message. It does, however, also say that, to be an independent female, particularly a teenage college student, then you also have the right to smoke and sell as much weed as possible. But I guess that's another story. So let's talk about the content in the film. It does open on a sex scene between our main couple, and you don't really see any nudity or anything like that, but they're very obviously having sex. And sex does play a role throughout the whole film. I mean, there's a very strong theme through the film, but there's more the ideas and the innuendo and the subject of sex rather than any other sexual activity. I mean, you do see couples in bed together, and they're obviously, married couples and pregnant couples and things like that. So, you know that there are sexually active people, but you don't see anybody having sex. I mean, same with, the kissing. You see kissing between two males, between two females, between males and females, but it's very sort of brief and, not lingered upon. I mean, the idea, it's not meant to be erotic or anything like that. Likewise, the nudity, you don't see any real graphic nudity, but again, it does have a little bit of a presence in the film. So you see, a shirtless man, let's say his name is Zach, quite regularly through the film, and in one scene is actually performing an erotic dance and trying to incite female attention. It's a tough scene, but if you have to watch it, be prepared to be completely focused on the abs. And there's some other men that you see in underwear and shirtless. The females, there's a bit of cleavage, a bit of skimpy clothing and that kind of thing. You do see some females being shot with water pistols, and they're wearing, surprise, surprise, white T-shirts, and you do see the nipples protruding through the fabric. But again, it's kind of, not really lingered upon. It's just the idea of this is how, in male parties, then this is how they want to treat women and women behave. And, yeah, you get what I mean. In terms of the violence is a bit of a strong word in this film. I mean, yeah, there is sort of, violent interactions. There's some fighting and punch-ups and things like that, but it's not meant to be brutal. It's all meant for comic purposes. So there's, push and shove and that kind of thing. There's a few scenes where you see some police drug busts happening. And that's probably where the most kind of violence is. One man is tasered, one man has a gun put in his mouth, and it is a little bit heavy-handed, but the point of that is to set up a gag at the end of the scene, so it kind of makes sense. There is a Holocaust joke in the film, and, things are described in kind of, I guess what you call violent sort of language. So a party is described as being rapey and things like that. Blood and gore. There isn't any blood and gore as in anyone, bleeding, but there is one scene, and this is a little bit spoilery, there is one scene where used tampons are thrown. So you do see all these kind of bloodied tampons, and then there's a discussion afterwards about, bleeding and vaginas and tampons. And so if in case it wasn't already clear what had happened, then it's explained to you. So the other thing with the sex and nudity, pregnancy has a strong theme through the film as well. There's a few pregnant couples, and another kind of gross out scene happens, towards the end of the film, is a woman goes into labour, and you see a shot from behind in between her legs, and there's a body part of the baby sticking between her legs, and the joke is, oh, do you think I'm ready to go to hospital? And it's a bit gross. I mean, at the screening I went to, everyone was laughing about it, but I can see all the mums and any nurses or, people in the medical profession in the crowd kind of cringing and finding it quite hard to watch. So it's a bit gross out, but there you go. With the swearing, yeah, there's heaps of swearing in the film. The F word has a very strong repetitive presence in the film. Likewise, S words, A words. No C words, which kind of surprised me actually, because there's a few times when the dialogue seems to go in that direction, and then the word just isn't said. But yeah, quite a lot of swearing, in the film, which you probably aren't surprised by, having seen the first one already. That's probably kind of the most of the content that I can really kind of address. As I said, there's a lot of references. Most of the things are referenced in the film rather than overtly kind of stated or performed. So with the sexual references, everything is kind of joked about or referenced. Everything from child porn or being in jail, being a murderer, or a drifter, orgasm, oral sex, all of those things are mentioned or referenced, so that it does feel like they have a strong running theme through the film. But like I said, you don't really actually see anything. There's an engagement scene, there's one homosexual couple, you see their relationship kind of emerge, and there's kissing between them, you see them in bed together, and those kind of things. So if you want to read a little bit more about the actual detail, if there's more you'd like to know about the actual content in the film, then take a look at the website. But otherwise, enjoy the film, and do let me know what you think.